My name is Joe, and I'm sitting here with my good friend Chi.
Hi there, everyone.
And we're going to be talking about things that interest us, pop culture related things. We both love comic books, movies, science fiction, all sorts of things like that. Chi himself, he has a lengthy resume in the comic book industry. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Sure, let me go ahead with that. I first started out in 1993 in Marvel Comics, starting out first as an intern, actually. And then later on got into the editorial office for a little bit, and then went on to freelance for coloring in both Marvel and DC Comics. And then even at some point got a little bit of work from Archie as well. And then around the early 2000s, I branched out and did work for Japanese manga companies such as Tokyo Pop, Viz, Del Rey, Yen Press, and places like that.
And that's kind of when we both worked together. About 2004, we both were working for Tokyo Pop.
Yes. Joe and I did work on the book at the same time. Work on some pre-press, pre-production work at that time period.
Now, what is for the people who don't understand, what is pre-press production work?
Well, pre-press is all the stuff that nobody else wants to do on a comic book. That's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, it wasn't glamorous.
No, not a glamorous job. But what our main job at the time for Tokyo Pop and Viz was, they would give us all the Japanese comic book page files, and we had to remove all the Japanese text, take them out, and then drop in the English scripts they give us. We drop in all the English text, and even sometimes the sound effects. And we did that for about, I think, 3-4 years or so. It was pretty interesting work, because we kind of treated it like assembly line production at the time. And it's not really the best type of work you want to do in comic books. It's just a lot of grinding, get through the day.
We never missed the schedule.
We never missed the
schedule.
Right
through 3 hurricanes, we didn't miss the schedule.
No, not at all, especially down here in Florida.
So I want to go back to what you said. You started working at Marvel as an intern in 1993.
Yes.
That's right when Marvel was exploding. Comic books were kind of exploding back then. What was it like? Well, how old were you at the time?
Well, I was 18 right out of high school. And the reason I was able to get in through an internship program because my high school at the time was the New York High School of Art and Design had a long-term internship program with Marvel and DC comic books that they would send students in their senior year out to work at these places for about 1 semester, and I had the luck to get in there. It was you go in, you're kind of wide-eyed kid and know anything.
That was my next question. You're 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be in comic books. You're an artist. What is it like being 18 years old and an intern at Marvel Comics back then?
Back then I was having a blast every single day. It's probably one of the best experiences I had. Even now I would say I've never worked a job like it. Marvel was a very relaxed place. You go in, people wear shorts, jeans and shorts, T-shirts. They sometimes carry a water gun to the office during the summer. And it's like high school party that never ended.
What exactly did you do as an intern?
An intern had all the unglamorous jobs, which is making photocopies of all the artwork that come in, and then delivering it to different editors in different offices. Also, sometimes you run to the mailroom, pick up the mail, bring package up and down. You're basically a gopher. We never fetch for coffee, but most of the time we just sent to do whatever they asked us to do.
So it's basically, it was a good way to get your foot in the door.
It was a fantastic way to get your foot in the door.
Now, at some point, you went from an intern to working for them. What was the transition? Like, how long were you an intern? When did you actually start work? And what was your first paid job?
Well, I was an intern for about 6 months, because of the semester, I was there for about 6 months. And then I graduated. I was also asked to come back as an intern for the summer vacation period, because that was the gap where Marvel was not getting linked directly to the internship program. But they can always pick the interns that have worked out with them and ask them to come back, and I was one of those. So I was there for about 2 or 3 months more. And it wasn't too difficult to transition to do freelance for Marvel at the time, because Marvel was, when we were there, it was called the second golden age of comic books, and that meant the books were just selling through the roof, and there was a lot of money, and there was a lot of work that was required. So for me, it was just, just basically go around the office saying, hey, I can do this, I can do that, what do you got for me? Of course, I was very good at doing watercolor painting. So at the time when we did coloring, it wasn't computer processed yet, it was all hand done. They require people to take color dyes or paint to do paintings on guides for comic books. So that's how I kind of got into coloring. It was fairly easy.
Okay, so what is your best memory from working at Marvel?
My best memory working at Marvel? Good God, there's so many of them.
What's like what's the craziest thing that ever happened? I remember you telling me they would have office chair races up and down the hall.
They had stuff like that, but that wasn't the craziest thing. It was nonstop. But the craziest stuff always happened probably around the Halloween party.
Oh.
Marvel Halloween party, everybody would at least dress as somebody, and as most of the time we do comic book characters. The year I dressed up, I just decided to put on a Superman t-shirt and put a suit on and go as Clark Kent. And
you have that picture of you with Stan Lee, and you're wearing the Clark Kent.
Yeah. Well, what's funny thing is, I was called Ethnic Superman number 2 because we had 3 Superman in the office that day. It was none of us were white. So, we were kind of designated as Ethnic Superman 1, 2, and 3. There were 3 of us. And of course, it's always super fun at the Marvel Halloween party. If you ask me the craziest thing, I always link back to this memory, and this is not a crazy thing at Marvel, it's just kind of my experience there, was that I remember, I think this was my first year at Marvel, it was going to winter in New York, and winter in New York, it snows very heavily in New York. But I remember there was a day I needed to go into Marvel to pick up some work or drop some work off, and I looked out the window, it was snowing, and I remember being somewhat terrified the fact that I couldn't go to Marvel that day on work.
Oh.
I mean, that's how good Marvel was. Well, but Marvel was also a place where if you're there, you really connected with people who share the similar type of interest. And one of the reasons why I enjoyed working at Marvel so much was, when you're going to high school, maybe you have some friends who like comic books, who reads X-Men and Spider-Man, Wolverine, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when you're at Marvel, everybody knows this stuff because it's part of their job. Everybody knows it really well. So anybody you talk to there, you can get along very easily. The other thing about it is that everybody over there is also a fan of Star Wars, a fan of Star Trek, a fan of Terminator, and all that stuff.
So let's go back to your first paid job. You're not an intern anymore. Your first paid job working for Marvel. Describe that. What was that like?
Well, my first job was coloring Barbie the comic book. Most people don't even remember this at this point, but Marvel actually published a Barbie comic book at that time period. I got the job. It was probably, I think, 15, 20 page consignment. I colored it, turned it back, and immediately I was fired by the editor. And I remember I went up to her, I said, why am I fired from the job? And she says, oh, because you colored Barbie red and pink. And that baffled me. I said, what is it? But I said, the dolls are always red and pink. She goes, yeah, but women don't dress in red and pink. And that was her reason.
What?
That was it. That was
you
the
got
reason.
but why not, the editor fired you?
Yeah. Editor of Barbie.
There wasn't even a correction like, hey, look, let's go back. You can't make this red and pink. Since when in the history of mankind do women not wear red and pink?
And then, if you look at Barbie dolls, it's always red and pink. But I think she just wanted to get rid of me. Maybe she has somebody else she wanted to put on the job.
All right.
But this is Marvel Comics. They play politics very heavily at the time. Of course, as a kid, you didn't know. You just thought, did I do something wrong here?
Well, how old were you back then?
I was 18.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it was the first job. I was fired off from it. But you know what? If you work in the comic book industry, you're going to find rejections over and over and over by anybody for any stupid reason. It's really, it's not really a friendly business sometimes. It's not as much fun as people think. And you kind of have to grow to be very thick-skinned to combat all of that.
Okay, so what was your favorite job working for Marvel?
My favorite job working for Marvel? I think it depends on the editor you work with. There were a few editors that are very, very chill, very cool. I remember Rob Tokar being one of them. He was the one that also gave us the work at when we got work from Tokyo Pop.
Yes,
he was there as editor. He was a very cool guy. Joey Cavallari gave me a little bit of work at the time for Spider-Man 2099 out of the 2099 line, and he was a pretty chill guy too. So I always think it's the job is always fun when you deal with a good guy, but when you deal with a guy who's difficult, who's always breathing down your neck, it's not a fun job, even if the artwork is great or you like the art that you get from it.
So the basic line is it's actually a job. I'm thinking people probably have in their head, I'm going to work for Marvel. This is going to be fun. And no, it's work.
It's work, and you deal with people.
Wherever you got to go, you're going to deal with people, whether you like it or not, unfortunately.
But I would say most of the people who are there are good people. They're just there because they like comic books. They happen to work in Marvel. They have a job. And when we were there, we never looked at it as, oh, we're in Marvel Comics, we made it. It was just like, oh, wow, we get to do what we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And that was the simplicity that I liked about it. At least there's a common denominator. There were people that behaved very poorly. I would say, we used to have this lady that was a secretary for the three executive editors, Karl Potts, Budiansky, and I think it was Mark Grunwald, with the three major editors. And she had her desk outside their offices. But every day during lunch, she would be talking to somebody on the phone. I think maybe it was a boyfriend or somebody in her family. But she would be crying on the phone, wailing for half an hour.
No.
Yeah. And they let this go. I mean, from the day I started working there as intern, and I think it went on for about 6 months or so.
No!
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was like this every single day until, I don't know whether she was fired or she was transferred. But one day she was not there anymore. But this went on for a long time.
That's insane.
Yeah, it is. That's comics here.
If I'm an executive editor and this person's right outside my door, I don't want to hear, the sounds of someone wailing and crying.
I did remember at some point, I don't know if it was Tom DeFalco or not, because he was the editor-in-chief at the time, came out to talk to her. But somebody toward the end was saying, look, you can't be doing this.
No, it's not professional.
But it was every day during lunchtime when there was break. You're just trying to sit there, eat lunch, and you hear this woman crying and wailing, from her desk area. That was Marvel Comics for you.
Okay. You also worked for DC.
Yes.
What did you work on with DC?
DC was very short. I was there because of an editor that I knew from Marvel, transferred over to DC, and he was working on the New Titans. It wasn't the Teen Titans at that time. It was called New Titans line. And, he gave me a little bit of work. I did a few issues, I think 3 or 4 issues at the time. And it wasn't too bad, DC, it was a very different work environment from Marvel. They were much more corporate-like compared to Marvel. Everybody in there tended to have wear a suit and a tie is really what their environment is like. And you have to be chauffeured around when you go in.
So there was no office chair races?
No, definitely not. The way I remember DC was set up was that they were, first of all, inside the Time Warner building. So they were just on one of the floors. So you go in there, this gigantic corporate building, and they're just one of the levels. You get there, they got a contact editor, they buzz you in. It's really very business-like. You go in, you go out. But DC also at the time had a lot of the older Marvel guys, like Archie Goodwin, Daniel O'Neill. So that was kind of like the older people and the older mentality. They weren't nearly filled with as many young people as Marvel. So the environment and the behavior and the attitude was definitely different.
Okay, so after DC, who else did you work for?
I did a little bit of work for Archie. I colored when they had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics. That was also because an editor I knew from Marvel went over there, and he called me up and gave me some work. So I did a little run on that. And then at some point I did also branch out and did a little bit of work outside of these major companies in some small press publishing. Did some work for Academy Comics, illustrating their Robotech the movie comic book adaptation. Okay. I did the artwork for that. And then I did start my own little company, in Connecticut that time period too. But around 1997, the entire industry was having this massive collapse because the distribution chain was failing. So Marvel filed for bankruptcy, and a lot of us was just kind of laid off from the industry. And there was a period of time I went on without any work.
It sounds that a lot of the work depends on someone you know.
That's kind of how the industry,
And that kind of
was.
seems like that's kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to that industry.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's hard for anyone. I can't even understand that. It's hard for anyone in the industry to just have a kid walking through the door and says, "Hey, I want to draw a comic book." But comic book, when it really comes down to it, is a very grueling production. We're always under deadlines. If they say, "Okay, well, I give you 10 pages in today, I need it in two days," they need it in 2 days. So it's not like you can just jump and do a leap of faith with anybody and say, "Here's work." Usually, you work with somebody that you think is pretty reliable. That at least is got some professional experience to know how to get these jobs done. Of course, being friends with somebody is helpful too. But at the end of the day, if you can't deliver, I think
I think the word reliable is the key word. If you're working with an editor and he knows, it may be great, you're friendly and all that stuff, but he knows, hey, I got a guy here, he's talented, he's reliable, I got a deadline. Keeping a deadline to keep that service level, that's the most important thing.
That is absolutely the most important thing. I could even say this. One of my earliest lessons that I learned was actually from the editor, one of the editors right now at Marvel, Tom Brevoort. Tom Brevoort at the time is not really one of the top guys as he is currently, but he was a small-time editor, and I remember, I was still an intern at the time, because the intern table used to be right outside his office. So I remember he came out one day, asked him, said, "What's a good advice to for someone who wants to start out in the comic book industry to kind of do some freelancing work?" And he said, if editor comes to you with work and you don't think you can deliver on time, don't take it. It's better for you to say, "No, I can't finish it on time," and not take the work than taking it and screwing up that deadline. And I say, okay, that was good. And then I've always taken that to heart. One of the things people don't understand about the industry is that it will always go through this massive growth, and then hit sort of a peak, and then it'll start shrinking. And when that shrinking of the industry, the market starts happening, it happens in a rapid way.
But I think in that respect, with them, it was oversaturation.
It was oversaturation with them. But every time you see the industry in trouble, it's oversaturation. Marvel was the same thing too. Before 1997, Marvel, I think when I was there, we had at the end close to about 100 different titles a month, and we were just pushing books out, whether readers wanted or not.
That's not talking about the variant covers on those 100 different titles.
No, not
that
at all.
was the problem. But they did at one point put out the greatest comic book that ever was released, and that's NFL Super Pro.
Well, Marvel put out a lot of things.
It's funny when you mention some of this stuff, you forget that this stuff came out. Like when you said, well, at the time Marvel was putting out Barbie, I was like, oh man, that's right. And also when Archie was publishing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Yes, they were doing the cartoon.
I completely forgot about the cartoon.
Archie was doing the cartoon line of books, not the Leesman and Lear version. And not to mention, Marvel had a brand called Star Comics that was just doing all licensed books.
That's right.
Yeah, they had Thundercats, Care Bear, He-Man,
Beavis and Butthead.
Beavis and Butthead was not under that banner.
No?
The other one that was on the banner was Elf. Alien Lifeform was underneath that.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were just taking any license at the time. So, the industry was putting out junk. I mean, it's not even just now they're putting out junk. Even back then, they were putting out a lot of junk. But it's a business. A lot of people don't realize it's a business. They're putting out products. They're supporting other companies. They're doing licensing deals. It's very, very complicated.
Let's talk about now. Now we're in the present.
Sure.
Now you're doing your own comic book.
Yes.
Now, what's that comic book?
It's called Captain China, and it's from my own comic book company, Excel Comics.
Describe as the creator of Captain China. Give us the Captain China origin story. Who is Captain China? Where did you get the idea for Captain China?
All right. Well, Captain China came about, and this is very interesting. It came about one time when I was doing a search on the internet. And I think as a gag, I typed in Captain China to see what pops up. And what really surprised me at the time was there was nothing. In a Google search, there was no character, no comic book character, no comic book that is titled Captain China. And that kind of surprised me a little bit. And I thought, the comic book industry has been around for like 70 years at that time, and we've never produced a character of Captain China. That's a little strange. So I did a little more. I did some more research to see if I can find anything of it. The only thing I found was a 1950s movie about a black and white movie about a ship captain that's sailing to China called Captain China. So it has not even related.
It had nothing to do with it.
Not even related to a superhero subject.
Nothing to do with it.
So I just said, okay, if this has never been done, then maybe I should give it a shot and see if I can do it. And very early on, I thought Captain China would make a very good parody comic book. To take the idea of our typical idea of truth, justice, the American way, and kind of flip it on its head, and probably look at it through where China is right now, which they're very much a communist country, and say, okay, what if you have a hero, his ideal is truth, justice, the communist way? And I thought that's a sort of a good gag, a good satire to run a superhero book.
It's a good twist.
It's a good twist. It's only going to be like 4 issues, probably, a limited series, and it's going to mostly just be comedy. Well, you have a hero that goes around telling people, no, the American way is the wrong way, but the Chinese way or the communist way is the real way to do things. And that was kind of where the idea originated. But I took a trip to China. I went there with my mom, because we were interested to go see China after the Beijing Olympics to see kind of the new structure they built to do some tourism. And when I got there, I was very surprised by what I saw and what I felt. We met up with some relatives, very distant relatives that I've never met before. I remember we were having dinner one night, and they were just sitting there talking. They say, and one of the things that came out of the discussion was they said, the American government always said to tell us to bring human rights and freedom to the country. But the problem is the minute they do that and give human rights and freedom to people here, the first thing people want is more than one kid, having one child, and change that policy. And so then we will have no way to control, the sort of the food resources that's lacking in this country and all that kind of stuff. So I remember hearing that, and I thought, wow, this is very interesting, because, the way they view sort of what everybody that we know about American freedom and all that stuff, they look at almost as a burden. And I say, this is very, very interesting. They had a completely different view on this kind of stuff. So I said, okay. I came back and I started thinking maybe I shouldn't tackle Captain China as just almost like a parody where I don't know anything about China, but because I was there, I have some awareness now of how they think and how they operate. I should try to maybe tackle it from a different perspective. And so there was a little bit more thought put into which direction do I want to do it. And at the end, probably another year talking to some people, they were doing some research in the history of China. I feel like, okay, let me see if I can present it as a comic book that really is sort of captures what they're really like over there as society, as a group of people, as the way their viewpoint of how the world treats them and what they want out of it. And from there, Captain China kind of snowballed into a real superhero comic book that has its own little theme and understanding and outlook on sort of the take on superhero genre.
I know at the time a lot of people's first reaction when they may see Captain China say, oh, that's a ripoff of Captain America. What would you say to that?
I say, why not? Because the idea was supposed
to... Well, I don't think it is.
Well, it's not. It definitely is not. But I'm saying they can think that way. But the thing is, the idea started out as a parody of American superhero, maybe just to lampoon Captain America. So if they want to think like that, I don't think it's a bad thing. And there is a little bit of that put into the comic book too. That little satire still put in there, and it's really satire. Say, look at what happened to Captain America when you drop him in China, in a communist Chinese
and I
regime.
kind of like the way that when you look at your comic book, the mythos kind of can fit in the Marvel universe and vice versa. Because if you think at the time, the whole thing is they're working on a super soldier. Well, at the time, everybody would be trying to work on a super soldier. So China would be a world power that would want to have that, advantage as well.
Well, I treated it this way. I treated it like when American detonated the atomic bomb. The minute we had one, everybody else in the world had one. So if you say, okay, if we treated it as Captain America's super soldier program is real, and America did develop something like that, the rest of the world will want one. And that's kind of where the sort of the starting point of, okay, this is where I can take it. What would happen if Chinese got their hands on something like a super soldier concept, and what would they do with it?
Okay. So how long have you been working on Captain China?
Well, the idea first started about 2008. And it took about 2 years to kind of flesh out the idea, figure out exactly what to do with it, find an artist and all that. And then actual production, I think, started around 2010, 2011. And the book wasn't out. The first book wasn't out until 2012. And if you want to say how long, it's been about 10 years, believe it or not. But we produced about 11 issues right now as we speak. And I'm wrapping up issue 12 at the moment.
So the first story arc ends with issue 12.
First story arc ends with issue.
For those who've never heard of Captain China, this is the first time they're hearing of Captain China. Where can they find Captain China?
You can find it on Amazon.com. You can type in Captain China on the search. You'll be able to find that. You'll be able to find the first 6 issues in a collective volume on Amazon. Or you can go to our website, excelcomics.com, and you can buy and download all 11 issues of the book.
Okay.
For just $1 each.
$1 each.
Yeah.
How many pages on each comic?
Generally, each chapter is generally about 30 pages.
30 pages, fully colored.
Fully colored.
For $1.
Yes.
Hey, I buy it every month when it comes out. So I'm telling you right now that's the best deal you can get. An average comic book now costs about $2.99 or is it
$3.99?
$3.99
Yeah.
For what, 21, 22 badly colored drawn pages?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, they're not all badly.
And Captain China is not badly drawn, badly colored. I can tell you that.
I still like some comics.
Yeah, Captain China's 25 years of professional experience put into that.
Do you read any comic books by any of the top companies anymore?
Recently, no, but I've been so busy. It's not because I don't want to. It's just I've been so busy, producing Captain China. I mean, almost every sparing time I got, when I'm not at work, I'm working on the book. So it just leaves me very little time to go read other books.
Let's just wrap this up. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to put links below in the description where you can check out Captain China, where you can buy it and go to Chi's website, excelcomics.com. And until next time, be blessed.